Alright, and I know a lot of you guys are also making candy wrappers, so I figured I would take a stab at that. So disclaimer, I have never actually tried to make a candy wrapper before. I know some things that'll probably work, but I've never tried this, so you get to see this insane live demo. So I'm going to go for a few different types of candy wrappers, as one might want to do. What are you doing? Give me my channel box. Oh, okay, here we go. Don't know what that was. Alright, so I'm just going to start with a random sphere. And the first one that I'm going to try to do is something like maybe one of those weird like chocolate balls or like a mint or whatever, where it is a spherical object wrapped in candy, I guess. So what I'm going to do is just sort of start out like this. I'll just do the top because I feel like that'll just be sort of easier to see. But I'm going to, I guess, isolate select this, and with no particular plan in mind, I want to get the sort of wrapper, like the sort of like janky wrapper effect. So I'm just going to sort of start grabbing random vertices and maybe, you know, fluffing them around a little bit, to use the very technical term there, just to see if I can get a little bit of that sort of overlapping candy wrapper shape. And I'm going for like kind of ultimate quick and easy here. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude this, scale it in, maybe pull it up a little bit. And you can see we are actually getting something that kind of looks not totally terrible in terms of a candy wrapper. So I'm just going to kind of keep scaling that, and maybe do another one, make it a tiny bit smaller. My scaling is like going kind of crazy. Oof, going kind of crazy. Alright, so that honestly gives you like a not totally appalling candy wrapper look. And if we, you know, pull that, yeah, that actually doesn't look too bad. I'm very excited about that. I can totally live with that as a candy wrapper. So I think the only other thing that having seen this and done this thing just now, the other few things I might maybe consider doing is going for the ends of this, because like that looks kind of weird. Is maybe what happens if you do like an edit mesh average, just to try to sort of even those out a little bit, and then you can just sort of scale that out. It's basically going to go through and just sort of get rid of the super aggressive corners and stuff in here. So like let's try doing it on this curve here. So I'm going to hit G to redo my last command. It's going to try to kind of bring everything back into something that's like maybe a little bit more of like a normal position. So I'll do that there as well, just see kind of like what that does. You can also go through if you're like, maybe I need a little bit more, like I want more of these sort of wrinkles in here. You can go back and sort of cheese those as well. So I'm going to grab this edge, open up my tool settings, and go into my move tool. And I'm going to set this to component, which is usually does a pretty good job of moving stuff straight out from the edge's surface. So what you should be able to do is then again sort of like pull that in. I'm just going to do faces. Sort of smush that in, pull that out. And then you have, again, something that's not like totally terrible as a candy wrapper. And just, I usually leave average vertices on for this, so I can go back in and just sort of, oof, what am I doing? So you just sort of go back and forth and just make something that's, again, like, not totally terrible in terms of like generic candy wrapper. So the other thing that you can do, so this is good obviously for like balls. The other thing is you can do cylindrical objects, and you can kind of try to do it in a maybe slightly more realistic way. So let's pretend perhaps that we have, I'm going to make a crappy cylindrical candy. Here's my lovely crappy cylindrical candy. And I am going to make this beautiful wrapper for this candy. It's going to be awesome, guys. Don't even worry about it. I'm like, be afraid, be very afraid. This is going to look ridiculous. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Pretty much, I'm just going to add like a crap ton of assorted subdivisions to this, again, with no particular plan in mind. The only plan that I have for this is I would like some subdivisions kind of towards the end of the candy, so that I can actually control what's happening there. Otherwise, if I don't have enough geometry, you're kind of like screwed. Alright, so I'm going to go through and do the exact same thing that I did before, where I kind of just randomly grab some assorted vertices. That was probably a lot of them. And I'm gonna see what happens if I do it on the top and the bottom at the same time. What the heck? Live on the edge. Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna grab these, and I'm gonna use soft select this time. That was a weird decision. Okay, maybe I'm not gonna use soft select for this particular batch. I'm gonna... okay. The random experimentation part of this is coming out. So I'm just gonna, like I said, sort of try to do more or less the same thing that I did last time, where I just go through and have like a little bit of variation to this. Maybe I shift some of these to the side. Probably that was too much, whatever. Alright, so I'm just gonna say that that's not completely horrendous for a wrapper. If this was something that you were actually making for real, you should totally do better than this. I think actually the circle was like way easier. Alright, great. Terrible wrapper. So I'm just going to kind of try to move this out into the front of my object a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and add a bend deformer to this. So I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to do bend, and then I'm going to do a twist, I think. Probably, there's a few different ways you could do this. I'm just going to kind of go with it. So I'm just going to make the curvature full 180. And then I'm going to rotate this so that it's, you know, rotating in the direction that I want. In this case, apparently that is 90 degrees. Question mark. And then I'm going to flip the curvature around so that it's rotating backwards, as it should do. And this is clearly not covering my object, so I'm just going to... That's actually really weird. Normally, it will do... Okay, cool. Normally it'll do the full 360. I don't know why it wasn't, but I'm just going to go ahead and manually type that in. So that's going to give us basically like a perfect little sphere around our object. Grab the deformer and the object itself, just wrap it around the candy. Probably scale both of those slightly larger, wrap it around the candy better. And then my theory is that you should be able to, by moving this deformer ever so slightly, get that actual sort of wrapping effect. From that candy, where you can see that the wrapper is actually sort of overlapping where it was, so it's like actually doing basically what a real wrapper would. So this is just by, again, sort of shifting where I put this bend deformer. And now we have this really weird, sort of janky, terrible looking candy wrapper here. So I just deleted history on that. I got rid of the deformer at the same time, moved back over my object. And now what I'm going to do is more or less the same thing that I did before, except this time I'm going to just grab the edges here and wherever the heck the end of my candy is. Wow, it's not even close to being centered. Turn on soft select, I suppose, and then I'm just going to go ahead and scale those in. And now you have, again, another sort of very janky candy wrapper. I think in this case, I'm probably not even going to bother with more deformers. What I'm just going to do is go through and grab just randomly sort of the bottom few loops here and just sort of twist it with soft select. So I'm just going to go in and, you know, go through and just very aggressively twist this until you have something that looks like a twisted candy wrapper. You should, technically speaking, also twist these the opposite directions, because I think that's how candy wrappers are normally wrapped, but I could be wrong. In this case, the only other thing, because like obviously the ends of this look catastrophically awful, I am going to go through and just grab these faces, delete them, and then go, yes, because it's the top edge loop, and then just go through and sort of re-extrude that, and it still looks crazy, but if you hit that with an average vertices, it's going to give you something that looks a little bit more normalized as a candy wrapper. Convenient thing about this is it will have, except for like that area where I just extruded, it should have pretty standardized UVs. And you can basically just, you know, make a candy wrapper label and slap it on there and more or less be good. So that's my weird thoughts with candy wrappers. I think that's probably, honestly, the only two that I see people usually struggling with. But yeah, so hopefully that was helpful.